go. It is the stuff that dreams are made of. It's the North Stars and the Penguins, and tonight, the Stanley Cup battle begins.
The 91 team came out of nowhere.
The whole run was unexpected.
I'm trying, but I don't think anybody can put in perspective for you how drunk the state of Minnesota was on the North Stars in the spring of 1991.
The fan base was just phenomenal. Yes! It's a 7 o'clock game and they're in the parking lot at noon.
I think a lot of us felt there was a chance that it might get saved with the improbable season.
When you look at it, though, it shouldn't have been as improbable as it was, because that was a very talented, good team.
We had some pieces that we could have built around here.
The entire state just is like a drug that they got addicted to.
As an owner, I imagine, you couldn't have asked for anything more. Went to the Stanley Cup Finals, played the Pittsburgh Penguins.
They were up 2-1 in the series.
And you're like, this is gonna happen, eh? This is really gonna, I can't believe it.
We had a 5-minute power play in Game 4 in 1991. If we win the game, go up 3-1 and win the Stanley Cup, is there such thing as the Dallas Stars?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I think if they win the Cup in 91, they're still here. I do.
I don't know.
Who's going to throw a Stanley Cup champion team out of their hometown?
I think somehow, some way, something would have been done that would have kept us here for a long time.
For sure, it would have bought them 5 more years. For sure.
This is really gonna happen. And then it went poof.
We're going to use a lot of the ruler today. It's almost like a shrine, isn't it? I mean, it's almost like too traumatic for people to like, let's put anything else up here. It's just an empty lot. I mean, there's really nothing here. As soon as you take the arena out, you've kind of lost the whole experience of being at the Met Center and going to the North Stars, which it feels so foreign now. It's almost like it wasn't here. Yeah, it was a nice shrine to the North Stars. It's almost like it never happened.
The North Stars are kind of this team that's forgotten. It's almost kind of like the team has turned into ghosts.
And the newer fans growing up, you know, they have no idea really who the North Stars are or were. But I think it's a nostalgia thing, just feeling like we had a pretty good thing going here. And we blew it.
You know, there's great history there. It was just too short.
The North Stars are orphaned because the Stars are in Dallas.
A place that I think has become a legitimate hockey market.
It's the Dallas Stars.
I mean, had the North Stars gone to Dallas and fallen flat on their faces for years, not made the playoffs or made them and never advanced past the first round, I don't think people would be smarting as much.
It all began last March when Stars owner Norman Green handed over jerseys to City Council.
You know, once we got to Dallas, you know, our team got better and better.
You got a very passionate fan base down in Dallas, and they really embrace the Stars down there.
Race Minnesota, we love our Stars!
You know, the NHL's got a lot of southern markets now, but they didn't then.
You always have what they call the snowbirds. You know, that's why they put a team in Phoenix. That's why they put a couple teams in Florida. They put a team in Carolina, these warm places where you have snowbirds.
Of all places at the time, you're thinking, Dallas? Are you serious?
You just can't do this. You can't move this team from Minnesota and of all places, Dallas, Texas.
You know, they cheated in the Hail Mary play against us. We ended up giving up 15 draft choices to get Herschel Walker.
I'd like to see that thing going across that end zone about 10 times a game.
Almost like it's an insult.
Moving hockey to Texas was like moving to Mars.
It comes back to one simple thing. Hockey, Minnesota. Hockey, Dallas?
I knew they didn't have hockey. I wondered, do they even know what hockey is?
A lot of people down here, you know, they've never seen a hockey game.
In a place like Texas, of all places, where they didn't know the difference between a hockey puck and a Zamboni.
If you're not familiar with professional hockey, here are some things you need to know. The season runs from late October until late April.
They're going to take our hockey team? Do they even know what a puck is?
We're going to talk about offside. That rule, you've heard about it, but let's show it to you. This is legal.
It's going to take an educational process of really further educating the people down here about hockey.
How can Minnesota not have a professional hockey team? How can Dallas, Texas win out?
Got to go where the money is.
There's just plain a lot more money in Dallas.
There was a burgeoning economy there.
The market down there, like I said, is much bigger. You're gonna get a lot more TV money out of Dallas.
Anything seemed possible in Dallas.
I became a Dallas Stars fan, I guess, just because I didn't know what else to do. What am I going to do? Become a Blackhawks fan or a Blues fan? Or hell no.
I know a lot of people that said, I'll never go to another game.
Now that's dumb, but it did that to people.
And then, of course, they go down to Dallas and win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, baby!
Duh, of course that's going to happen.
When the Stars won the Cup, I went crazy. Brett Hull put in that overtime goal.
That just sucked.
I went crazy, and the bar wanted to whoop my ass because I was rooting for the Dallas Stars.
And of course, that sticks in the craw and the hearts of Minnesotans everywhere because they feel like that Stanley Cup should have been ours.
That could have been the Minnesota North Stars Cup.
Oh, I wanted that so badly here.
Here's Mike McDonald raising the cup over his head going, that's our cup. It belonged here, it belonged in Bloomington, it belonged at Met Center.
I was disappointed in that it was the Dallas Stars, not the Minnesota North Stars. Glad that the Dallas Stars won. Disappointed that the Minnesota North Stars never will.
That's why the North Stars and their story will always be interesting, whether you're 2 or 82. You're gonna wonder,
how in the hell did we let this happen?
Minnesota, obviously now it's known as the state of hockey, but I mean, that history goes back 150 years.
You know, this state has such deep roots in hockey. You know, it's the state of hockey.
I think of hockey as more of a lifestyle here than a sport. You know, these kids start skating and walking at the same time. They're playing on ponds.
You know, this is a place where hockey is part of our core DNA.
Minnesota has turned out more NHL players than any other state in the union.
For the big news, their first-round pick, Doug Zemolak of Rochester, John Marshall.
So how in the world does an NHL team not survive here? If they can't survive here, you think they can't survive anywhere.
Minnesota selects as the first pick in the 1988 entry draft from Prince Albert, Mike Modano.
You're in the state of hockey, obviously, and you don't have you're not going to have a professional hockey team anymore.
The world was out of kilter. I think there was a lack of kind of balance in the universe when the NHL left Minnesota.
This is like the state of hockey, even before it even was a slogan, like we're not going to have a pro team, even though we should have had one when the original 6 was made, and now they're leaving.
So we've had this history of hockey sort of ingrained in our fabric. And it took until 1967 before the NHL decided that they were going to expand to the point where we could get a team in the big league.
They were my team. We were with them from day one.
It went over fantastic.
I love my North Stars.
It was almost an event.
Well, I listened to scratchy AM radio in northern Minnesota, fading in and out, listening to Al Shaver call the games, and you just hang on every word.
Kristoff back out to the point. Maxwell cracking up, fires the save, a rebound, they score! Kristoff locking it in.
It was a big deal until probably the mid-70s.
There was so much hatred in some of those days because the team wasn't good.
The league was concerned that the franchise might go bust.
Then they got merged with Cleveland, and that was a circus because, okay, the North Stars were crap, Cleveland was crap, so you've just put more crap together.
You know what? You got a bag of nothing, and you got another bag of nothing. Now you put them together, and you have 2 bags of nothing.
Well, I don't think a merger had ever happened before. This was the first and only one that I know of.
That was a pretty shaky setup anyway.
And that's when George and Gordon Gunn took ownership of the team.
In the later, mid to late 80s, the team again took a nosedive, on the ice, and that, contributed to the turnstile as well.
The owners of the Minnesota North Stars hockey team are also considering a move to Oakland, and tonight, the future of that team is also up in the air.
We, as you know, filed for a transfer to the Bay Area.
All we're wondering, okay, what's going to happen here? Are we going to lose this team? And so we're out of a job now, because it looks like the Guns are going to get an expansion team in San Jose.
We thought they were going to San Jose.
You know, the Guns decide they want to leave, and to save the franchise, you got to kind of split it.
Worked out a plan with them where we could keep half a team, and the Guns could go to San Jose, and we could move on from there, and hopefully thinking that we would be able to make things work.
And I'm thinking, as this is all playing out, I'm going, this is Minnesota. Why is it this hard?
And it just seemed like it never was an easy path for the North Stars or their fans.
It shouldn't be this difficult. We shouldn't have to come up with these magical, unprecedented formulas to keep a team here.
At one point, they were even talking about folding the team, but that was in 1990, which led to them putting the team up for sale.
And so they were asking around, looking around for who else could help us out here, and they found Norm Green.
Hi, I'm Norman Green, and I'm here to tell you the North Stars have made some changes.
Here comes Norm Green with the fancy suits.
Norm definitely was sort of the new breed of owners.
I mean, people would stand up and bow to the owner's box. Hail Norm.
He was saving the team for Minnesota, at least that's what he wanted everybody to believe.
Here's this cool character. Slick back hair and his fancy suits, and he's the boss. Cool. You know, what could go wrong?
Hi, I'm Norman Green, and I'm here to tell you the North Stars have made some changes. Our players are working harder. Our ushers are working harder. Our cleaning crew is working harder. Even our Zamboni driver is working harder. Everybody here is working harder to make North Stars hockey great.
Order a pair of 91-92 season tickets and we'll give you one more free.
I think there's some skepticism of major pro sports owners in general, especially in Minnesota.
Here comes Norm Green with the fancy suits and the little dogs and the fancy cars.
He was a big shopping mall guy.
From Calgary, made his money in shopping malls.
He was actually a part owner of the Calgary Flames.
He came from a hockey background, Canadian guy. I mean, he knew he was part of the Calgary Flames.
People didn't know him. They didn't know who he was. He was a Canadian. I hate to say that, but he's from out of town.
He's not a Minnesota guy. He's from Calgary.
He had no roots here, right? I mean, he wasn't from here.
Let's be honest about it. It's a very parochial place.
He wasn't one of us.
You're one of us or you're not. We kid about it. You're looked at more suspiciously like you're a carpetbagger.
You know, he came in with a little bit of a swagger about him, and so very kind of un-Minnesotan in that sense.
He was kind of an arrogant guy and, above it all, and just felt like he was, too good for the people here in Minnesota.
And he had the look of a playboy.
You know, he was very debonair.
I mean, he had a slicked back, gray hair. He wore glasses, and his teeth were perfect.
Slick is not a good look in Minnesota. Or not good to be too slick.
Almost like the Rat Pack was so sophisticated, that's how I would put him.
He'd wear $2,000, $3,000 suits, and he, rode around in a Rolls Royce.
He had that Rolls Royce.
The white Rolls Royce parked in the only car that was allowed in the Met.
You know what kind of day it's going to be when you see, is the car there or is the car not there?
Definitely eccentric, a little different.
He had these two little dogs.
His dogs. I forgot about the dogs.
Charles and Rupert.
They were King something Spaniels, really expensive dogs.
I think I just always go back to his two dogs in the stands all the time at practice.
The dogs were there everywhere, in his office, when we'd go to meetings in the suites, the dogs were always there.
You get in the elevator, Norm's there with the dogs.
The dogs, the car, the whole attitude. I use the word swagger. He brought that swagger to the organization.
We're going to have one of these in the Twin Cities, and it's going to be ours, and we're going to try and keep it for as long as possible.
He was kind of a caricature, too, of a very rich man.
Almost like Mr. Burns.
He's kind of like Montgomery Burns from The Simpsons, to be honest with you.
Find me some good players, living players. Scour the professional ranks.
I think the inspiration of Mr. Burns was Norm Green.
Just this very rich man who was going to get his way, and woe to you if you got in the way.
I think a lot of people were intimidated by him.
Don't get me wrong, I was scared to death of him. Most of the people who worked for him were. You were walking on eggshells around him all the time.
I did not want to be around him.
Well, he definitely was a presence. There's no question about it.
I actually didn't mind him early on.
I vividly remember the crowd, all of us, chanting Norm and hoping he would acknowledge us.
People would stand up and bow to the owner's box.
They all thought he was the savior of hockey in this state.
Hail Norm.
Look at him, he looks cool, he acknowledges the crowd.
Norm was very active with the fans of the North Stars. He would be at North Star games and he would walk the concourses.
He just had a habit of listening to the last person he talked to.
And he would get into conversations with fans and get their ideas and thoughts.
Anytime he'd walk through the building, somebody gave him an idea, a fan, he'd come back and say, we got to do this, this, and this.
Lou's right. The last guy he talked to became the most important idea.
Louis would be in the press box and he'd be watching the game or whatever, and Norm would come walking down the aisle and he would tell him some great idea that he had, and it came from some guy that he talked to in the concourse during the intermission before, and the guy was probably, had 2 or 3 beers in him already, and was 3 sheets to the wind.
This was going on so much, I said, Norm, you got to quit walking through the building.
I would not tell him that, but I'm glad Lou did that.
Norm definitely was sort of the new breed of owners. You give him some credit because he was sort of an innovator.
It was the first NHL team ever to have a dance troupe.
Oh my gosh, the dance team! How did we forget the dance team?
And now, as a special tribute to the North Stars, the UPA Electric Stars proudly present Reach for the Stars.
Norm approached us and said, what is this? I like this. I need this for the North Stars. And I said, well, we don't skate. We're a dance team. And he goes, figure it out. So I walked into the locker room and I said, okay, gang, here's our uniform, and we're now the Electric Stars.
Oh yeah, the Electric Stars.
So you had them dancing in the aisles, and sometimes between periods they would put a piece of AstroTurf out on the ice, and there would be guys out there trying to break dance and get the crowd excited.
And then he wanted us to perform on the ice.
They were like, that is so dangerous.
It was.
That went over skeptically at best.
I didn't hate it though. I mean, a lot of folks were pissed, like, oh God, these dancers. Well, so what?
As a kid, you just look for them, right? The Electric Stars.
And it wasn't just little kids. There was a lot of adults. Maybe people had a couple beers and were having a lot of fun and were up and dancing. But no, it really became fun.
There was, the cheerleaders were everywhere. So we were really making a hard sale to try to get people there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we had, there was a lot of firsts that we saw, and not all bad and probably not all good, but we had a lot of firsts with them.
Kind of to Norm's personality, he really wanted to bring this elite level of luxury, I guess, to Met Center and to the team and to the experience that he was trying to sell fans.
It wasn't like they didn't try, but some of the stuff, it's like you're like, ah.
Some of them were so ludicrous, I don't even want to talk about them.
You need to have some deep pockets to be an owner of a professional sports team.
Norm at the time, I think he was kind of getting pressure on his real estate investments in Canada.
And he was very over-leveraged, and so he was attempting to get his financial house in order.
Norm had to get money because he bought him on a shoestring. That goes back to the same thing. The North Stars always were trying to get by.
Oh, see, that's just too high. I just can't even believe how, if I'm not watching a game, I can't play, I'm sorry.
It looked like you were going into this kind of a shrine to hockey.
Built in 1967, it had these sort of a Roman column effect from the outside, long, squat, white building.
Like I said, it was perfect when it was in the wintertime. It looked great. With the white snow and then the white fortress.
It was so simple, Met Center. It wasn't fancy.
For me, being a little kid, it was like going to a cathedral.
That was a big part of it. It was the whole walk up to it. That was the best part of it.
It was terrific.
The word that comes to mind is lawless. It was lawless.
I don't know. I think it held less than 16,000 people, 15 and a bit.
Nobody checked for an ID at the damn concession stand.
It got loud.
Beer drinking, hell raising.
If you ask a player, you know, do you hear the fans yelling and screaming? And you know, some will say, "Oh no, I don't. I tune them out." You could not tune it out at the Met Center. It was loud.
I remember the tailgaters.
My brother once put a full bottle of Jack Daniels down the leg of his pants.
Only Minnesota with a tailgate for a hockey game in the winter.
Here's my brother, who's not 21 years old. He's swinging the bottle of Jack Daniels above his head during the national anthem. The 83-year-old security guard walks up to him and simply says, "You need to put that down." Never asked him for ID, never asked him for anything.
Every seat in the building had a great view, and you weren't very far, even the upper level seats, the upper rows, you're not that far up from the ice surface.
And those of you who are old enough would definitely remember the color scheme of the chairs there.
It was the seats.
Had the goofy colored seats.
You might see a couple of black seats and then a green seat and a yellow seat.
You know, the multicolored seats.
And a white seat.
One of my favorite places to be, Met Center, was a beautiful thing.
So it was this hodgepodge of stuff.
And so the gimmick was a kid is like, what color am I going to get? So it's almost like you wager, like, am I going to get the yellow or green or the white one?
When you looked at a game on television, even if there weren't very many people there, it looked still like it was, you know, probably a decent crowd because you couldn't tell what was seats and what weren't seats.
The old colored seats, I remember it, and were a little dated.
Seat covers were changed and in the stands, and a lot of changes in the Met.
Most players, when they came into that building, loved to play there because the ice was the best.
I mean, it stayed chilly in there. You didn't have to really freeze it too much.
The ice was fantastic.
Basically, it means that when the players skated on the ice, they felt like it was smooth, and when they were passing the puck didn't bounce.
I mean, what's not to love about that building?
Now, it did need more than a coat of paint as time went on.
Because it was, frankly, not in great shape.
The only thing you don't love is we didn't have enough seats or suites.
And remember, this is an era when there were no private suites.
There were some at one end, but not nearly as many as what were going to be required for a competitive NHL team by the late 80s and early 90s.
You needed a place to play where you could leverage the revenue streams.
Kind of to Norm's personality, he really wanted to bring this elite level of luxury, I guess, to Met Center and to the team and to the experience that he was trying to sell fans.
You know, here we were sitting since 1967 without major improvements in the interior of the building, and he felt it was necessary to do that.
The place we played in, Met Center, didn't have a lot of those assets, and it was an older building. And so Norm immediately was looking for ways to create more revenue.
The one time they tried an idea of, you got a free lottery ticket with your ticket to the game.
Remember, he was going to give away $1 million.
It was up to, I think, $15,000 every night that was going to be given away. If they couldn't, you know, if nobody was the winner at a particular game, that cash would roll over to the next game. And so at some points you had maybe $50,000 in this pot. And these guys would run around and they got an envelope in their hands with this cash in it. And wherever the spotlight settled, that was the seat that was going to win.
Tried to do the pay-per-view thing for a while, which was just an utter and complete disaster.
You had to pay for them just like you would a boxing match or something like that.
I don't even remember who put it into his head to think that this thing was going to work. I'm sure it's something you'll be able to talk about with Louis.
They needed income. They needed money and they figured this is the way they can raise some money to pay for the rights.
The North Stars always had financial difficulties, all the time.
You need to have some deep pockets to be an owner of a professional sports team.
Norm at the time, I think he was kind of getting pressure on his real estate investments in Canada.
And he was very over-leveraged, and so he was attempting to get his financial house in order.
Norm had to get money because he bought him on a shoestring. That goes back to the same thing. The North Stars always were trying to get by.
What Norm Green was asking for was $15 million.
Thinking $15 million sounds laughable now.
Sounds like a relief pitcher to me.
In today's world, that's a drop in the bucket.
At the time, it felt like a lot of money, and it also felt like well, why should necessarily the Metropolitan Sports Facilities Commission help them out?
If you came up with 15 million, you could do some things with it, but there was no ability there to create suites, a level of suites.
I just don't think the commission and Norm saw eye to eye.
But they know how I feel. I'm not going to shy away from it. They did not help us the way they should have or could have.
1 second, we got Mike Modano here. Mike, late in the game, you had...
Because I was involved in it, so I know they were obstructionists.
I think what you simply had was short-sighted civic leaders.
I think both sides were playing hardball with the other.
There was certainly a growing tension, and I don't think there was ever the level of trust that between the sort of the powers that be in terms of what they were trying to accomplish.
Could you take $15 million? Would that have kept them here? It might have artificially. I don't think that would have been a long-term permanent solution.
You know, Bill Lester, who was the head of the Sports Facilities Commission at that time, I mean, I think he was looking out for his own interests.
From a personal standpoint, it's very good public policy to put them in the downtown area.
There was a concerted effort to get the North Stars to move downtown at the Target Center.
Target Center was a newer building, had some suites.
And the Timberwolves were blowing the doors off of things because they were brand new.
The Timberwolves come on, though, and it's like, who's this? What's this shiny new toy?
As the Timberwolf makes his appearance here.
And they were putting 19,000 people a night in the Target Center, so it was huge. All the focus was there. The North Stars, meanwhile, were getting maybe 6,000, 7,000 people a night out in Bloomington at the Met Center, where it was cold and snowy.
The Target Center comes along, and all of a sudden it's like, here we go. Downtown Minneapolis is alive. It was just electric downtown, and so that was a really fun time for sports fans.
There were other forces pushing the team, trying to get them to join the Timberwolves downtown. They successfully moved the Twins and the Vikings to downtown. The Timberwolves were there. The last missing piece was the North Stars.
And what we're asking him to do is to meet with the Target Center management to finally negotiate a deal where he could move into the Target Center.
I thought that sounded pretty reasonable. New arena, downtown Minneapolis, no reason why you can't share it.
And that was the whole thing behind this whole deal. Hey, why don't you guys go play at the Target Center? Well, if we go play at the Target Center, our revenue's going to get cut again.
The advertising, naming rights, suites, all of that, how you split all those revenues.
And $650,000 worth of concert and sports business is what one spokesman says the new competition would cost the Met Center.
That's just not the way it works anymore. Every team wants not 62% of the pie, they want the whole pie.
I think at the end of the day, Norm was really keen on having his own building. Also at the same time, there was a lot of discussion by the city of Bloomington and in the Mall of America and the city of Bloomington to sort of use Met Center property differently.
Norm Green made contact with us and said, oh, gee, we love being here in Bloomington. What can we do to stay here? So we said to them, well, why don't you hire an architect? Why don't you have him draw up plans?
Well, he had a plan. His plan was to attach the south side of the Met Center to the north side of the Mall of America. Great idea.
And so I think he thought that there was an opportunity to somehow attach himself to the mall itself. I remember seeing plans that there was a big bridge that was from, this is even before the hotels were in place, but from the Mall of America all the way over to Met Center.
So it was a really good idea, but he just couldn't get the approval to get it done.
We never got to a point of ever discussing any dollars. I would say within a few days, we got word back that he was talking with the Target Center downtown, and then somewhat later, talking with Dallas.
Nobody saw Dallas as an alternative.
We've heard other owners kind of make these veiled threats about moving.
We just felt there's no chance we're leaving.
I was a collector, and I believe it was Glenn Sather's. Yeah, no names on them. This is Stanley Cup Finals 80-81, Finals 80-81, 80-81, 80-81. This is later in the late 80s. The dreaded stars. Maybe he was ahead of his time. I don't know.
You know, a lot of people say, well, when he changed the uniforms, that's when I knew that they were moving.
I guess if you look back at it, the uniform change probably was the beginning of the end of the end.
When they changed that logo, that was, to me, that was the end.
We couldn't believe that the logo was changed.
I remember it vividly, and it was not a happy time for me because that was the jersey I grew up watching and dreaming about putting on. And
you know, it had one of probably the better logos that were ever made in the game.
I think the N and the star is the best out there in hockey with like Montreal and Boston. It was a classic look.
I thought I was the only one that loved the North Star logo.
It's an iconic logo. It's a great logo. There's no question about it.
And this was a prototype. And somehow I ended up with it in a box. It was a prototype of what Norm had cooking. And I just remember, I thought it was so ugly.
That was a very trendy thing in the late 80s and early 90s, to kind of have the scary all-black uniforms. I didn't like the look.
Because in the 90s, we wanted to be more splashy. So, and then the fashionable thing in the 90s was black. Everybody wanted to use black, even though your colors weren't part of it.
I didn't like it. I still don't like that logo.
They went to stars here. It's the North Stars.
We saw the North, the N gone, and I said, well, it's pretty, and I didn't even think of it, but I remember we got home and Larry said, it's really strange that that N is gone. That means something.
Went from the North Stars with the N in the middle to just stars. And right then and there I knew that the stars can be anywhere. North Stars need to be in Minnesota.
I think once we saw that you know, something might more be involved in this deal and might be coming down the pipe soon.
Of course, a lot of folks say that was Norm Green slowly warming up the idea of getting them out of town, to dump North from the name.
Maybe that was a precursor. Maybe, you know, I don't know.
when you reflect and you think back, well, yeah, we made that change, that logo. Maybe there was something in the works back then, but I don't really think that was the case.
I wasn't thinking it. He wasn't thinking it. It was just like a third jersey.
Certainly wasn't from a marketing standpoint, because they didn't, I don't think they had the ability to sell any more jerseys.
But that came about because we were looking for ways to generate more income from jerseys. That's how it started.
So it was an accident?
It was an accident.
I don't believe that.
Why not?
Like I said, the stars can go anywhere.
It certainly, made the brand a lot easier to transfer.
Very movable. You could go anywhere with that kind of name and that logo.
I don't think he had the attachment to the Twin Cities.
Why were we all so tough on Norm Green at the time? And some of that was a belief that he hadn't really given it a fair shot, and he had some other accusations against him that gave, I think, me the feeling that he just wants to get the hell out of Dodge here.
Then he had a lawsuit for sexual harassment.
Norm Green's behavior, according to multiple women over the span of many years, was common knowledge.
I heard rumors.
We're talking about everything from telling women to wear short skirts or they look hot or sexy, to unwelcome touch, even kissing them in some cases. And Norm Green denies some of it, but he also admits to some of it.
Some of the stories I heard, I'd rather not even say on camera.
So a couple of these jumped out to me. Required several female North Stars employees to come into his office and kiss him in exchange for a Stanley Cup t-shirt. Another one, a female assistant testified that she was sitting with her legs crossed when she says that Green knelt down in front of her, grabbed her ankles and uncrossed her legs and announced to everybody in the room, "This is how a lady should sit." Multiple women here reporting unwelcome, unsolicited kisses from Green. One saying that she received, she couldn't even count, more than 100 kisses, she said, that were considered a reward if she did something good.
I don't know exactly what was in Norm's mind. I do know that it had a big impact on the organization.
One who I spoke with said the North Stars was everything to her and was devastated when she realized that his behavior wasn't going to change and this thing was starting to implode.
I don't think you can overestimate the impact that that probably had on the team moving as well.
I would be surprised if it wasn't a factor in his mind as the reason why he didn't have a long-term future here with his team.
I mean, the stories kind of speak for themselves, but I think he just overall, when I think of Norm Green, I just think of his arrogance and not really feeling warm and fuzzy about really wanting to stay here.
Maybe I was in denial.
I really feel a lot of people were in denial.
I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I was naive.
Till literally the day that they said they were going to leave.
We just felt there's no chance we're leaving.
And at first we thought Dallas was maybe a straw man.
North Stars owner Norm Green is still playing it close to the vest. This morning he held a private meeting with his players, and when he emerged, Green denied that the topic was a Dallas move.
The only thing I told them is what I've been saying for a long time, it's still true, is that we've selected that as a location we need to look at. We're in negotiations. The negotiations aren't complete, and when they are, we'll tell them first.
If his lips were moving, you couldn't exactly take it to the bank.
We've heard threats from sports owners before. We need this, or we're going to move. And they're going, oh yeah, right. Boyle cried wolf.
I think that's what initially everybody thought, like, oh, if we don't get it, we're going to leave. Like, no, you're not.
In view of the fact that we are facing some major increased costs and limited sources of revenue, you have until January 15th to give us your best shot.
The threat was real.
And on January 15th, we looked at what was proposed, and it was not good enough.
Until he was down at the Dallas City Council passing around Stars jerseys and saying, I'm happy to be coming.
A letter of intent to welcome the North Stars to Dallas as a National Hockey League franchise in Dallas.
Until that moment, I don't think anybody wanted to believe that this was really going to happen. They thought somebody might sweep in and save it at the last moment.
Welcome to Dallas, and we welcome the new Dallas Stars.
I remember where I was when I found out.
Front page above the fold was North Stars, abandoned Minnesota.
I was at a bar in St. Cloud.
On March 10th, 58-year-old millionaire Norm Green announced he was taking his team to Dallas.
We did the right thing that night and got wildly intoxicated to try to forget about our problems.
It's been a long, hard road to come here, but we're very, very excited.
Barring any last-minute heroics, the Stars have played their final game at the Met Center.
It was just horrible. That last game was really hard. We were a mess, all of us, even our dancers.
And then I got the letter from Norm Green saying he didn't need my services in Dallas. Not gonna go.
It was just a bad, just a bad way for it all to end.
I think I was the last one there. I sat there in the seat. I was there for a long, long time.
I make the comparison to the Brooklyn Dodgers.
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and it was as if people were in mourning. We were in mourning. And so on a personal level, there's a sense of tremendous loss.
Norm Green almost became radioactive.
He took our team.
It's very easy to still make him the enemy. He's still the villain.
You know, everybody loves a villain. I think it's funny that there's still people there that are willing to stand up and say, Norm,
you suck.
This box here, jammed full of all kinds of little mementos. There's the Let's Play Hockey issue that they did, kind of, commemorating the team when they left. One of the things that I did in my spare time, I went through the closets that we had down in the bowels of Met Center. And I found boxes and boxes of old pocket schedules. So I have a pocket schedule from every season that the North Stars existed. Here's game pucks. Here's an old North Stars sweater, shirts, sweater that the Ushers wore. These were the warm-ups that the players wore. I always thought these were cool. This is what, basically, like you say, this is what the coaches would wear during practice. This was actually a giveaway at one of the games that season. Sponsored by Channel 9, and he's 20 years old in this picture. There's definitely a lot of people that they collect North Star stuff. And this is one of my pride and joy. This is a game-worn Basil McRae jersey. I believe it's from the 88-89 season. And some old pucks. That picture right there. He's handing the jersey to the Dallas City Council. That's about when we knew they were gone. I wish you could bring them back. I wish they were still here. It's history, and kind of got to own whatever happened for you.
Rather incomprehensible that a community could simply lose a franchise.
We worked so hard to get professional teams here to Minnesota, now we're just going to let them go?
I think you had short-sighted civic leaders who didn't understand the value of the proposition of having an NHL team in your community.
When you're a community and you have an asset like a Major League Hockey team, you got to jump through hoops to make sure it's successful. Everybody's got to pitch in.
I mean, this is a way of life for us.
Yeah, it's part of my life. It's part of Minnesota. It's not like something that you could just take away.
I would think that you'd fight with every last breath to try to keep it there. But then ultimately, it's the owners that's going to make a decision.
Minnesota forever. Norm, you suck.
Deep down, people said, all right, we can feel we had every right to feel betrayed and angry and to view Norm Green as the villain. But in the end, what do we want?
I hope we get the Whalers or somebody.
What do you do after they leave?
We'll get a new team and we'll all forget about Norm and he'll be bankrupt hopefully in a couple of years.
I think there are a lot of us who wondered whether this metro area was big enough to handle 4 major traditional pro men's sports.
We're not New York, we're not Boston, we're not LA, we're not San Francisco.
Maybe we're kidding ourselves here. Maybe there just isn't enough revenue, maybe there aren't enough people, maybe there are not enough fans.
Look at the fan support here. We're in like possibly not even going to make the playoffs this year. Look at the fan support we have here.
I don't think there should ever be a question about whether the state of Minnesota can support an NHL hockey franchise. In the end, you got to decide, are these community assets?
Frankly, the best thing that happened to Bloomington was when the stadium left.
You're still going to have that debate.
The North Stars has proved a cautionary tale.
It became kind of the cornerstone of the way that we approached future venues and decision-making with the other professional sports teams in town.
That's one of the factors that ultimately led to, Target Field being built, for US Bank Stadium being built.
Run the clock forward. I mean, the Wilfs got $500 million, $500 million.
And I think it did help the other teams because you could always bounce back to saying, the North Stars left.
There was more of a sense of urgency.
That was a stern lesson that we're not going to let this happen again.
We went 7 years without an NHL team before the Wild came in. That was kind of like wandering in the desert.
And then you realize that to get a franchise back costs infinitely more than just keeping them here.
And it took $285 million to get them back because he had to build a building plus buy a franchise.
There was huge opposition to any kind of community investment. So the naysayers were saying that, this is going to bankrupt the city and it's a terrible investment.
Norm Coleman was fantastic in getting the team here. He was a big reason because he believed in it.
You have a Norm Coleman from St. Paul working very hard to leverage the National Hockey League.
Well, they came to St. Paul on the day after the circus had left. And so there you have Gary Bettman and the owners of the Chicago Blackhawks and New York Rangers, and they're all walking through the Civic Center, and the smell of dung hung so heavily in the air that folks could hardly breathe. And the commissioner pulls me over and he says, Mayor, by the way, you guys got to build a new arena.
I mean, we would not have the XL Center if the North Stars hadn't left. That's the building that the modern NHL requires.
When they moved down here in St. Paul, right from the get-go, the number of sellouts and the fan support was outstanding.
Once the arena was back, everybody was a fan. All the opponents were gone. They somehow disappeared. They all wanted tickets. If we're faced today with about needing to update the Xcel Energy Center, it's been 24 years since I dropped that puck this year. And let's see how who rises to the occasion.
Well, you gotta understand, it's something that's gonna happen almost every 20 years with a sports team. You know, stadiums after 20 years, there's gonna be a necessity to upgrade or remodel.
I think that the team will get what they want. They all have to contribute part of the cost of doing it.
That's eventually gonna come no matter how loyal and how long any team has been around.
Now, there's some people who still would say corporate welfare, we should never get into that sort of thing.
Now you have to structure it in a way that makes sense to the taxpayers. It's not just a giveaway, but does it make a difference? Does it add both in terms of economic benefit, in terms of vitality, but ultimately even more than that, generating a sense of community pride. I think there's great pride in having the Minnesota Wild as our team.
The new generation, they've wrapped their arms around the Wild. They love the Wild. I don't know if the North Stars could have got to the level that the Wild have.
I've only been to 2 Wild games, and every time I've been there, I've always compared it to the North Stars experience. And that's kind of not fair because it's a different era.
One of my best friends, he refuses to accept the Minnesota Wild. And how many years have they been here now? 24, 25 years? He won't watch them because they're not the North Stars.
A lot of fans would love to see, they say, well, the Wild should be called the North Stars, we should get the name back or whatever. Well, the Dallas franchise controls that, so, that's not really an option.
And obviously that ship has sailed, but it speaks again to that feeling of betrayal that really belongs to us.
But why are they beloved? I honestly don't know.
I think back in the day, it was one of those situations where folks and families could afford the game.
We never really won anything, so it's not like we were raising banners every year. That wasn't it.
Well, I think it has something to do with the jersey, the N star on it. I think there's some nostalgia with that.
Was it the colors of the uniforms? I don't know.
And so many people still love that logo.
Maybe it's we feel ripped off. I mean, honestly, I kind of feel ripped off.
I think people are really hurt,
Yeah, still
they're
hurt.
really hurt and feel like something was
taken.
I think it's funny that there's still people there that are willing to stand up and say, Norm sucks.
Norm sucks! Norm sucks! Norm sucks!
You suck. Those are the first words that come to mind.
Norm Green sucks is a cottage industry.
Norm Green sucks! Yeah, he just said it.
Norm sucks.
Well, Norm, kiss my...
I think he will forever, I think that'll forever be something that's thought and said. I really do. I don't think it's ever going to go away.
Among hockey fans in Minnesota, that's almost like a greeting.
Yeah, ditto what they said.
Yeah. God, did that get to be popular though? Sold a lot of t-shirts with Norm sucks on them.
They're very clever. The things they come up with, I mean, sometimes you have to laugh.
It's funny, when people say they're from Minnesota, my quiz is, what do you think of Norm Green? And if they don't say Norm Green sucks, I know you're not from Minnesota.
My biggest concern was that when people were chanting Norm sucks, that people understood it didn't mean me, that it was Norm Green.
Everybody loves a villain.
Is it fair?
Yeah.
I don't know what you would expect.
Oh gosh. I don't know if it's fair or not. I think it is part of Minnesota hockey lore.
Maybe that's unfair. I still don't know the whole story, but that's what comes to mind. You suck.
If I look back as a player, it's not fair. If I look back as a fan, it's probably fair.
We shouldn't even care about him anymore.
It's not personal. It was still business.
I think the blame is to be shared in a lot of corners. I think the natural thing that people say all the time is, well, Norm Green sucks. So it was all his fault.
I would like to know if there's anybody in Minnesota sports history that is more vilified than Norm Green, and I honestly can't think of anybody.
Now look, I'm not giving Norm a free pass. The guy was an a-hole.
This idea that some guy, outsider, came in, kind of messed things up a little bit, and then took the team away, you know, doesn't sit well with hockey people.
I don't think kind thoughts at all, not at all. He took our team.
And it took us, you know, 7 years to get a team back here. So, yeah, Norm sucks.